Welcome here to the FWA Review, where I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Hetherington, Executive Committee member and writer at The Star. I think there's only one place to start, isn't there? And it's Arsene Wenger. Ultimately, do you think this is the end?
Well, it's looking that way, you have to say that, just through looking at A, Arsenal's results, and B, Arsenal's performances. I find it very sad, actually. It's a bit painful to watch at the moment, because I think, like a lot of us, I've been a huge Wenger fan over the years for obvious reasons. He had a brand of football in this country which took the game to another level. He's a fantastically successful manager. I personally think a great manager to deal with. You ask Arsene Wenger a question, he gives you an answer. I know some of his answers yesterday seemed somewhat bizarre at times, but overall he's done a lot for English football. And you look at the guy now, and he's clearly suffering. And I think anyone who really cares about football in this country doesn't want to see a man like Wenger suffering the way he is.
No, absolutely not. And there's a huge amount of respect to him. He said those lines that he came out, the one saying about losing trousers and shirts, Naked Gun, the headline here from Mark Owen has been, and talking about Koscielny, saying that the boss must share the blame. We've had some great writing, Heitner, Ashton, from inside that players meeting last night. Ashton talking about how Koscielny was in tears, that detail about his kids at school being embarrassed, and that's great football writing in difficult situations to get those lines from players. But then you really get a sense, don't you, of how the divisions are starting. They don't feel they're being coached enough, and that's telling.
Yeah, I mean, the book always stops with the manager. I mean, players have got to take responsibility. I think we all know plenty of managers over the years who have prepared teams perfectly for matches, who've had a game plan, they send the team out, and for whatever reason those instructions aren't followed through by players. But ultimately the manager carries the can. That's always been the case, always will be the case. And eventually, if this continues at Arsenal, Arsene Wenger, it's an incredible thing to say, we never thought we'd be saying things like this, Arsene Wenger will carry the can.
It is awful to say, and the point that escalates it further is people realistically think he's going. Your newspaper with the leading line today that Everton would snap him up in a minute.
Yeah, it's an interesting story by David Woods. I mean, clearly there's issues at Everton as well at the moment, not just Arsenal. Sam Allardyce went in there, had an immediate impact, appeared to be doing the job he was brought in to do, carried Everton away from relegation fears initially, but clearly Everton are on a bad run. Their fans aren't happy with Big Sam, just as Arsenal's fans now aren't happy with Wenger. And Woodsy there clearly has done a story based on some information he's got that Mashiri, the owner at Everton, may well fancy Wenger. You know, at first glance you think, oh, that's a bit of a stunner. Then you think about it and think, well, they have a reputation at Everton for playing football in a certain way, and the Wenger way certainly would go down well with Evertonians. But I think to start with, Everton have just got to make sure that they stay up. I know they've got 34 points. I know they're 11th. I know they shouldn't go down. But that division is so tight.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
You lose a couple of games in a row, teams at the bottom win a couple of games, and suddenly you're back in trouble. So I think the first thing Everton have got to concentrate on is making sure they stay up. And if you look at Big Sam's record, there's nobody better at making sure a team in trouble stays up than Sam Allardyce.
We certainly would hope in Everton they've got quality enough. Talking of quality, and again we come back to Wenger, Joachim Löw, however you want to pronounce it,
yes.
Which will be the ongoing question we all ask. We know his quality, we know his style, certainly fit. That hasn't been in club football since 2004 when he won the Austrian League. Is the backroom staff enough at Arsenal to support him in that, to coming back into club football after such a long break?
Well, he's done a fantastic job with Germany, obviously, and you wouldn't bet against him having a good World Cup. I'm certain if it's an interesting story and quite an in-depth piece Rob Draper has done there in the Mail on Sunday. I'm quite sure that if Arsenal do decide it's time for a change, and Joachim Löw is the man they go for, I would imagine he would want to bring in his own staff. even though there are people in place now at Arsenal. I think one of the it's probably the crux of the whole situation in terms of replacing Wenger is, would the new manager be allowed to bring in his own staff, or are there people in places there who Arsenal would regard as being set in stone almost? This is the way we do things here. You come in and do the coaching. I don't know a manager who doesn't want his own people, or at least some of his own people around him at a club.
That's all you need to say, really, isn't it? Personally put. Mismatch of the day.
I think Martin Samuels picked up on this in the Daily Mail today. You wouldn't expect Manchester City to be involved in a boring match. Although, to be fair, they aren't getting criticised for that. It's Chelsea who are getting criticised for a sort of a lack of ambition in their approach to the game. It wasn't good to watch. Manchester City clearly deserved to win, dominated the match. We're talking about clubs in trouble here. We're talking about Arsenal. We're talking about Everton. You've got to put Chelsea in there as well. I know they're still the reigning champions, but fifth in the Premier League is not good enough if you've won the league the previous season. And if you look at it, you know, Antonio Conte's team selections baffle me. If you look at the team that won the league last season, you know, David Luiz is out, Gary Cahill's out, Matic is gone, Diego Costa is gone. You know, that's a third of the team is gone, so maybe we shouldn't be surprised that they're not doing as well. And, you know, I would have thought yesterday at City, you know, you don't need to be a tactical mastermind to think, well, why didn't he start with Morata or Giroud up front? Maybe playing Willian and Hazard in the wide positions. Hazard didn't look happy playing centrally. This is not the Chelsea of last season. And once again, this is another situation which clearly isn't going to end well. Everyone expects Conte to go at the end of the season. I expect Conte to go at the end of the season. I think Conte expects to go at the end of the season.
I was stunned in his press conference this week building up to this when he started talking again about a mismatch between being backed in his signings, and that's what that Pep Guardiola hasn't bought the league. He was asked that directly by one of the football writers, but he said he has been given the quality of players to match his talent. Once again on the offensive, it's almost like he wants to get sacked before the friendly with England, right? So he can be. But in his defence, and I will come to his defence in this is the way he set up to play Barcelona with great success in that first leg. He didn't have Kante, and this just shows the value of that player, doesn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. That was not a good day for Kante not to be available. No. Away to Man City. That was a further disruption to the whole Chelsea situation. I'm talking about players who are no longer in the team. I should, of course, have added Kante in terms of yesterday's match as a key player who was missing. Someone who a player who was the most likely, maybe in the whole Premier League, to break up the way Man City play. Missing him as well made it a very difficult operation for Chelsea. Conte clearly was aware of that. But I think you've got to come to terms with the situation at Chelsea, that it is basically the board who sign the players. And if you're a manager, you've got to accept that. If you don't accept that, then the alternative is fairly obvious. You go somewhere else.
Manchester United in action against Crystal Palace tonight. We know how tricky that back line is, so we know how valuable De Gea is to Manchester United. You're exclusive this week. They're going to do everything to keep him. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, my information last week, which I did for yesterday's paper, Daily Star Sunday, was that Manchester United will offer De Gea a contract at £350,000 a week, making him the highest paid goalkeeper in the world. He probably should be the highest paid goalkeeper in the world, because arguably he is currently the best goalkeeper in the world. If there's one player Manchester United cannot afford to lose, it is De Gea. He made a mistake against Chelsea recently when Willian beat him on his near post. That was most unlike De Gea. He was absolutely furious with himself. Carrie, you could see that at the time. But that's a one-off, a rarity. And nobody appreciates De Gea more than Jose Mourinho. Mourinho made the point recently when I was in a Sunday paper press conference with him, that if you're trying to build a great team at Manchester United, as he is trying to do, if you are bringing in people like Alexis Sanchez, who Mourinho was delighted to add to his squad, you don't take that step forward, then immediately take a step back by selling De Gea to Real Madrid would be the obvious place. So United are determined to keep him, and they will pay him accordingly.
Talking of Real Madrid, that leads us straight on to Tottenham. Sorry, Pochettino. Bring on Juve. We're looking into this Champions League week. It's got to be the highlight, hasn't it? Son does it again. It's that time of year that Tottenham seem to just kick into another gear while everyone else starts struggling. It's remarkable, isn't it? It seems to be their purple patch, and they go again. Fourth, just quietly, bubbling away.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at Wembley on Saturday for the Spurs-Huddersfield game. I just love watching Spurs play. I've got to be honest about this. You know, there's certain games we go to as football reporters, and you think, I'd rather not be here today, but I've got to be here. There's other games you think, I'm delighted to be here. And I'm always delighted to be wherever Tottenham are. They've got a great style of football. They've got a real English heart to their team, which is good to see, particularly with the World Cup coming up. But clearly, Son is not English. He's South Korean. And as Jerry and I were discussing, Jerry Cox and I were discussing at Wembley on Saturday, we've been talking about the beast from the East all week weather-wise. Well, on Saturday at Wembley, we saw the beast from the Far East, and Son was terrific. You know, he's probably still an underrated player, and he shouldn't be an underrated player. You know, the most likely player to score a goal for Tottenham, Harry Kane. The second most likely player to score a goal for Tottenham is Son. He's so important to that team, in my opinion. He brings another element to the team, another dimension. He's got terrific pace. He's a goal scorer. He's skillful. I was watching the warm-up before the match, and when they were going through the sprints and the shuttles and all those routines, the player leading the way was Son. So quick, so professional, as Pochettino said afterwards, so committed and so important. And, you know, huge match Spurs, Juventus this week. And I wouldn't back against Spurs at the moment.
Another star making everyone wow. Mo Salah. I've been lucky enough for both of them to track their career quite widely because of the region that I cover, but Mo really has blown everyone away this season. There's been some fantastic writing as well about Muslims in football and building up their culture, getting a new sense of Islam and what it means to the likes of Ozil and to Salah, which has been really fascinating reading. We'll send you the links to those on the FWA website. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Salah's, as you rightly said, Carrie's blown everybody away. He's certainly blown me away because probably the worst statement, without a doubt, the worst statement I made in pre-season when I was asked by my newspaper to do a list of things like who's going to win the league, who's going to win the FA Cup, who's going to be the best signing of the season, who's going to be the worst signing of the season. Can you believe I said Mo Salah, to my shame? And I had to write a piece 2 weeks ago in my column basically saying, Mo Salah, this is an apology. How could I possibly have said that? The reason I said that was because when he was at Chelsea, he didn't make an impact. And I thought at, £36 million or whatever it was a lot of money for someone who, and you could argue, had failed already once in English football. Maybe he just wasn't given a proper chance before. Now he looks, well, he's getting compared to Lionel Messi, isn't he? Which is, I don't think anyone really wants to be compared to Messi, because although you could be said it's a fantastic compliment, it's also putting a lot of pressure on someone to live up to that sort of billing. Absolutely. But Salah has been sensational. And he is Messi-esque in terms of the way he plays, the type of goals he scores. Jurgen Klopp was right, I was wrong.
Don't you worry. Big congratulations to the Lionesses. They're on course, one win away from winning the She Believes Cup. Thursday night, midnight, BBC Two. Yep. They came back, 2 goals, going down a goal twice. A shocking own goal, but their mentality really has improved over recent years. That would have really got their shoulders down. There really seemed to be a real strong commitment, a real growth in the previous 2 years, and that really showed in that match last night against Germany, of all people.
Indeed. I would say there's more focus than ever on the England women's team at the moment because of the appointment of Phil Neville. And it'd be a great start for Phil to win this tournament. I noticed his pre-match masterstroke before the Germany game was to invite David Beckham into the dressing room to talk to the players, address the players, tell them that the greatest honour you can have in football, if you are English, is to play for England. and he explained how much it meant to him, and he obviously, Phil wanted him to convey that message to Phil's players. And as you say, Carrie, he's close to starting with a tournament win.
He is. There's very exciting news to come about the women's game and the Football Writers Association. Lips sealed for now, but very exciting news to come in the future. And you went to the North East Football Writers dinner, a fantastic occasion, very well attended. Tell us all about it, and big thanks to the organisers.
Yeah, absolutely. Colin Young is our FWA Master of Ceremonies, if you like, in the North East. Colin did a brilliant job producing another outstanding dinner. There was a number of us there from the National Committee, Paddy Barclay, our chairman, Paul McCarthy, our executive secretary, Jerry Cox, myself. Great to support that event. It was great to see Jermaine Defoe come back to the North East to receive the North East Personality of the Year award for the care he's shown to Bradley Lowry. Everybody knows that story. Quite an emotional night for Jermaine, who showed his dedication to that particular event. When I walked into the hotel in Durham last Sunday, the first person I bumped into early Sunday afternoon was Jermaine. First one to arrive, stayed till late that night, received his award, spent time with Bradley's family. Next morning, he's back on the south coast in training with Bournemouth. Impressive. Jordan Pickford came back to receive the Young Player of the Year award. There was a good representation from Newcastle and Sunderland in particular. There was 380 people in the room. It was a great event, and you know, we now look forward to next year's dinner in the North East, which will be the 40th anniversary of that particular function. And there's been some great nights over the years. I'm certain next year will be another special night.
Jermaine Defoe, a tribute to the game, and an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Stay tuned for the latest developments from the FWA review right over on our website. For now, bye-bye.